Hello, Ara. Thank you for being with us today. It's delightful to see you, and I'm sure that we have some excellent words of wisdom to share with our listening audience to help them in their healing and spiritual journey. So, how are you
Yeah.
today?
I'm very good, thanks, and I'm honored to be here, and certainly hopeful and confident that I'll be able to offer something good to your listeners.
Good, good. I have no doubt. I have no doubt. You are a psychotherapist by
Mhm.
profession. Is that correct? And a hypnotist.
Yes, yes, both of those. Yes.
Okay. We on this podcast we like to focus on healing, which I describe as synonymous with our consciousness evolution and following the enlightenment path. There's just
Mm.
different words for the same thing. And based upon your experience as a psychotherapist, how would you characterize that? What is your perspective on what healing is?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, when we talk about healing, it can come in a number of forms. That do the obvious forms of physical healing, as the healing of a wound, and there's emotional and psychological healing, which is healing of emotional wounds and trauma and things that have affected our lives certainly in a negative way and that still cause us pain or still cause us problems. And then there's what I would call spiritual healing, which is really goes to the heart of who we are and who we are in life, what we want in life, what's important to us, and how we can be the best person that we can be. How we can, for me, how we can honor God and love others, and so that's where I'm going when we talk about healing.
Okay. Is there really a distinction between those three categories, the physical, emotional, and spiritual?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious distinctions, but they all overlap. Okay. Often physical healing will lead people to emotional and spiritual healing. And, or it could be the way, sometimes spiritual healing will lead to physical healings. We've seen that in a number of cases and, or psychological healing. So they're all intertwined and, they're each different, but they're all intertwined and they're all important.
Okay. Now, how do you perceive what do you perceive us to be? What and who are we as individually compartmentalized entities?
Uh, Well, there's a good question. So what are we? I mean, if I'm at the 30,000-foot view, we are beings. We are
Well, I'm sorry.
alive.
We are what?
We are beings. We are
Okay.
alive. We are, we are beings created by God for a purpose, and that purpose of Him and to honor Him. That's my view of it. Not everybody views it that way, but we are all beings, let's face it. And we are, and I like to think that we're here for a purpose, and most of us, when I talk to clients every once in a while, they'll one of the questions they'll come up with is, I really want to find out what my purpose is. What is my purpose for being here? What am I supposed to be doing? And so those are the deeper questions that your question really leads to. What are we, and who are we, and what are we supposed to be, and what are we supposed to do? And there are a number of ways we can find out. For the Christian, it's through prayer, and that's obviously through reading of the Scripture, the Bible. And there are others who have other ways of finding out. But that's a search that I think we're all on. I think every one of us is on that search for a meaning and purpose.
Okay. All right. And what do you see as and this kind of intrudes upon your profession? What do you see as the primary obstacle to us achieving that?
Uh, the primary obstacle that most people, it's not the same for everybody, of course, but the primary obstacle I see with most people is what they want when they walk into a therapy session. So the number one thing that I hear when I ask people, "What do you want? What do you want to change?" Or, if you could rub a lamp and a genie would appear, what would you ask for? And the number one thing they want is peace, peace. And they don't mean world peace. They don't mean peace between them and their husbands or their wives. They don't mean peace between them and their neighbors. They mean inner peace. They mean peace inside them, in themselves. Peace, inner peace, what we like to call inner peace. That's what everyone wants. Inner peace. I'm good with who I am. I love who I am. I feel I have a purpose in life. I feel I am doing the right thing in life. I feel, all the things that are important to you. Peace. That's what everyone wants.
What prevents them from experiencing that?
Oh, a number of things prevent them from experiencing that. I mean, physical illness can be one thing, especially if it involves being in pain, because if we're in pain, we're focused on the pain, not on achieving peace. But the same is true for emotional pain. If we're in emotional pain, if we're feeling anxious, if we're feeling depressed, if we're feeling angry, any of those strong emotions, if they are dominating our life, we're not experiencing peace. Peace is not there for us. And one of the reasons that people fail to achieve that peace is because we think we should be able to control other people, control the other people's thoughts and words and behaviors. And we can't. We cannot do that. I'm a psychologist and I can't do that. We cannot control other people's behaviors. And but as long as we're under the delusion that we can, we're never going to have peace because we're always going to be trying and we're always going to be failing. So the idea of peace is, let's be happy instead of trying to control others. Let's look at ourselves. Let's change about ourselves what we can change, what's possible to change. That's what brings us peace. I'm not worried about changing you or anybody else to the way I want you to be because that's not my goal in life. My goal is to love you. My goal is to care for you, but my goal for myself is simply to maintain that inner peace.
When you say, "My goal is to love you," how are you characterizing love?
It that's the love that would be defined in the scripture as agape love, meaning selfless love, meaning I really have to put your good before my own. Okay, it's a selfless kind of love, or at least, even if it's not before my own, I have to put your good first. I have to do good things, not because they benefit me, but because they benefit you. It's that kind of love. That's the kind of love we're talking about. Agape love.
Okay. So do you perceive love as a, commodity?
No, not at all. Love is an action verb. I tell clients this all the time. Love is an action verb, and it is comprised in our actions and our thoughts. Okay, so love is not an emotion. It's not something that we see in a romance movie on the silver screen. It's none
Wait,
of those
what?
things.
You mean
It's
Hollywood's
not that.
wrong?
Hollywood's been wrong for a long time, but that's a whole other subject. Love, in essence, is how we treat others. That's what love is. Do we treat others in a loving and caring and kind and merciful way? So that's what love is, and
Okay, that's
that's what we
behaving in
strive
a
for. That's
loving fashion. That's behaving in a
Yes,
loving
that's what
fashion.
love is. Love is behavior.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Mm,
It's an action verb. I always say that, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
okay. Alright. And where does this love come from?
Uh, so originally, it comes from God, our Creator, who created us and loves us. For us Christians, loved us enough to send His only Son to die so that we could be saved and live with Him. And if you're not a
Okay,
Christian,
so love is something that we can get or something that we can give. Is that
it's something that's given to us. It's given to us. It's often
okay,
said
let's
that we love God because He first loved us. Okay, so it's something that's given to us. Yeah, so love is an
so it
action verb,
is
but love is
so
also a
how is
gift
that not a how does that make it not a commodity?
because you can't buy it. Okay, some of
Right,
the
but
richest people
you're
and
just
some of
saying
the
that you
richest
can
people
give
in the
love.
world. Some of the richest people in the world are people who don't experience love or obviously unhappy. So you can't. Everybody knows you can't buy love. We said that in a million songs and in a million movies, and that part's true. You really can't buy love.
Even the
Okay,
Beatles said that.
that's right. That's right. And so you can't buy it, but you can give it and you can receive it. And you asked me before, what keeps people from attaining the inner peace they want. Many times it's because they won't accept the love that's given to them. So there are people who are acting lovingly towards them and trying to reach them, and they won't accept it. And the reason they won't accept it, there are many reasons they won't accept it, but usually it involves some hurt in their past, some trauma in their past, something that tells them they can't trust anybody else. And so, in order to love somebody, on a deep level, I really have to trust. There has to be some level of trust. And there are many hurt people out there who believe that I can't trust anybody. And so I'll just withdraw into myself and that'll be it. I'll just live for me.
Mhm.
And it's a very sad and angry and disappointing way to live.
Okay. And yeah, I agree that
Mm.
since we got on this topic, I didn't really plan to go go here, but that's where the
Yeah.
conversation seems to be
Yes, sir.
lead, leading. So you can behave in a loving fashion,
Hmm.
but you said also that you can give love and you can get love.
Hmm.
And from different contexts. So
Yeah.
I'm failing to understand how that does not make it a commodity. And if I pose to you the thought that
Mm.
love is not a commodity, it is a condition of being that we are either in or not recognizing. How would you respond to that?
Hmm. Well, there may be some truth to that, but the reason love is not a commodity is because it can't be bought and sold. Commodities, as we all know, can be bought and sold.
But if
You
we
look at
can
the
give it and we
commodities
can
market, it's all stuff that can be bought and sold. So it cannot be bought and sold. Now, if you're saying could it be bartered? You could barter, I suppose you could barter loving actions to somebody for something that they give you, but that's not what love is. Love is supposed to come from your heart. You're supposed to do it because it doesn't benefit you. So I'm supposed to love you whether I get anything back for it or not. That's the idea. That's why it's not
okay.
a commodity
Well,
because the love we give, we're not supposed to assume that we're going to get it back. And many times we don't. But that's what we're supposed to do. That's what Jesus tells us to do. He
okay.
even tells us to love our enemies, okay? How can we love someone who's our enemy? Well, if we take them as a prisoner of war, we can treat them in a loving and careful and merciful way. Doesn't mean we let them go. It doesn't mean that
What
we don't
allows
try and
us
get
to do that?
information out of them, but 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 we love them
What is
in that
necessary
way.
in order for us to be able to do that?
What's necessary is for us to put our own self-interest aside, and what's
Which
necessary is for us
which is
is for us to say is for us to not say, well, what am I going to get out of this? And that's really hard to do. Whenever we consider anything or, consider something new, especially, or consider a relationship with somebody new, the first thing that pops into our minds is, well, what am I going to get out of this? Okay. But that's not the proper approach. The proper approach is Jesus tells us we're just supposed to love people. We're
when you
supposed to
say it's
love them,
not a
act
proper approach,
lovingly.
but it's a very natural approach.
Sure, it's natural, but there are a lot of things that are natural that are still not proper. There are
Well,
it's
who determines whether it's
if
proper
I
or
get
not?
angry at you, if I get angry at you and I say, "Gosh, I'm mad enough to kill you," it wouldn't be proper of me to kill you, would
But
it?
there are a lot of folks that don't agree with that, and it's still a natural
Mm,
behavior.
sure.
And they
There are
and
many
they
folks that don't agree with that, but you know who they are? They're the people that come to see me because they have a problem and they can't solve it themselves.
well, and I think if I may, the people that come to see you recognize that they are unable to resolve that condition themselves. There are
True.
multitudes of other
Yes,
people that don't recognize that their behavior is a problem,
you're right. That's true.
and so they don't
That's
come to
true.
see you,
That's
and they
true.
continue to enhance that behavior.
That's true too.
Okay,
So my job in life is to love people, not to save everyone.
okay. The when someone comes to you and they're seeking help, at what point do you determine that that they have achieved their ambition for coming to you, number one? But,
Mm,
do you recognize that you have done all you can for them? In other words,
okay.
discharge them.
Yeah, that's a great question because, one of the you know, therapy is something that can go on in some cases, it normally goes on for months, but it can go on for years, okay? And you're asking a really good question. You know, well, when does this end? When am I cured, or at least when am I in a position where I don't need therapy anymore? So I can only speak for myself, but my goal for anyone in therapy is to get them out of therapy. That's my goal. So if you come to me for therapy for a problem, for a family problem, for a work problem, for an existential problem, my job is to walk through it with you, to find answers, but ultimately to get you out of therapy. I don't want to see you in my office a year, 2 years from now, because that's too long. So it's up to anyone like me, any practitioner like me. It's up to us to, that has to be our goal. What we should say to everyone who comes to us, okay, well, my goal is to help you answer your questions or achieve your goals, because we always ask what their goals are. But ultimately, my goal is to get you out of therapy so that because you have achieved those goals or you're well on your way and you don't need help anymore to do that.
Okay. Que it is not a direct correlation. Psychotherapy implies, mental, condition. How do you define a mind?
A mind, so a brain is what we have in our head. A mind is who we are. Our mind is our thoughts. I think, therefore I am. Descartes. He was absolutely right. Okay. So our mind, in the sense of our being, our thinking being, is our thoughts. That's our mind. Okay. And it's really important. Uh, and I do this in actually in my latest book. It's really important to separate the idea of mind from brain. There are a lot of things that happen in the brain, and they have effects on what happened in our minds. But our minds, ultimately, most brains are pretty much alike. They're pretty much the same spongy mass.
Same goo.
But just about every mind is different from every other mind. So minds are individual. Minds are a much different thing than just the brain.
Okay. Well, but what is a mind? That doesn't really tell us what a mind is. It's
Yeah, the
different
mind
from
is
a brain. I agree.
sure. So the mind is the sum of our thoughts. Put very succinctly. That's what our mind is. The sum of our thoughts.
Okay. And where did the thoughts come from?
That's a good question. So thoughts can come in from outside us. Okay, so people can say things, so we can pick them up through our senses by
Mhm.
hearing them, by seeing them, by reading them, by observing the firmament, or by observing creation. All kinds of thoughts can pass. So thoughts happen, but thoughts are also generated within our minds. Okay, and that's more like, all right, I see what's coming in through my senses. Here's what I make of it. Or I like this. This seems pleasant to me. This doesn't seem pleasant to me. Okay, that's where that's one of the courses we take as psychologists is something called sensation and perception, and it's all about perceiving. It's all about the way we perceive things and how they come into through our senses and what our brain does with that. So it's a very scientific and very studyable thing. Okay. But once we get into what our mind does with the sensations and perceptions, that's very individual according to the individual mind. And minds, of course, are very individual. And so one of the reasons that when I talk about dream interpretation, which I do in my current book, I make the point that, it's silly to think that you can buy a dream dictionary and that when you look up something in a dream dictionary, it's going to mean the same thing to everyone's mind. That's just ridiculous, all right? Because symbols mean different things to different people. So the symbol of the cross for me suggests Jesus, suggests the church. But if I'm a cross country trucker, it might symbolize a crossroads to me. Or if I'm a rescue worker, it might symbolize the Red Cross. Different things.
Yeah, we
So
we define what the symbol means.
yes, exactly. That's why you can't look into a dream book and say, "Here's what" that says, "Here's what this symbol means." That's nonsense. That
Well,
doesn't work.
we can read a dream book, and the dream book tells us what these symbols mean, and thereafter, when I see that, when I attract that thought, then that's gonna interpret for me. I'm gonna track the substance behind that symbol because that's what I perceive it to
W
be.
well, if if you again, my point is if you believe what the dream book tells you, then you're not really applying your own thought to it.
Right,
You're not really
but it has
applying
a
no.
purpose if it gives you some guidelines of what you're going to
Yeah,
attract in
no,
your dream.
no, really, so those kinds of books have no purpose except to mislead you. That's all they did.
I'm sorry, the symbols in a book?
Yeah,
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 okay.
yeah.
In your hypnosis work,
Yes, sir.
what what is the condition that you, strive to have your patient achieve when you're putting them into a hypnosis state? How would you describe that?
Easy. Deep relaxation.
I'm sorry, say again?
Deep relaxation.
Deep
That's what I want.
relaxation.
Yes,
But,
yes.
where is the relationship of the mind and the brain when they enter that condition?
Okay, so in terms of the mind, we're talking now about the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. So the conscious mind is the thing we're using right now to talk to each other,
Mhm.
to exchange ideas, to think about things, and think about thoughts. That's what we're using now. The unconscious mind is what picks up everything else, all the other things that go on in the world. And so if you're driving along a road and you see a billboard for a circus coming to town, your mind might flash to, oh, a time when you were a kid and you went to the circus and you might remember some of the smell of the popcorn. You might remember the smell of the animals. You might remember the animal acts. You might remember the high wire people. You might remember the trapeze artist. You might remember who you were with, what you ate that day. But if I'm driving my car and all those memories pop up for me at once in my mind, I won't be able to drive my car. I'll be overwhelmed and I'll just run off the road. All right. So the unconscious mind stores all those other things, all those other impressions and things that are there. So the unconscious mind either has those or recalls those, but doesn't throw them into our conscious mind because that would throw us into confusion. It would overwhelm us. We have to be able to drive the car. We have to be able to pay attention to what we're doing. So the conscious mind is the boss during conscious hours, but during our unconscious hours, the unconscious mind is the boss. The conscious mind is sleeping, and the unconscious mind then can throw all that stuff out there. So I might see that billboard, and later on that night, I might have a dream about when I did go to the circus with my uncle and what it was like, and who I saw, and it could mean any number of things could happen. But that's where that unconscious content comes to bear. So we talking about the mind, we're talking about two aspects of the mind. One is the conscious mind and one is the unconscious. And so getting back to hypnosis, of course, we started with hypnosis is like dreams. It allows the conscious mind to kind of sit back and relax and just relax. You're not asleep, but you're just relaxed. But it involves the unconscious mind, allows that unconscious mind to receive thoughts and suggestions. And that's the reason that hypnosis is so effective because we're giving suggestions to the unconscious mind, positive suggestions, usually to cure harmful habits like smoking, for example. We give suggestions to the unconscious mind about that. And the reason that is useful is because things like smoking are habits, and habits may have their main impetus, energy in the unconscious mind, not the conscious mind. And that's why, that's why your question is a good one, is that, we have to differentiate between the conscious and unconscious minds. But the unconscious mind has a lot of information that may be useful to us. And that's why we want to explore it. We can explore it through dreams and interpreting dreams, and we can explore it also sometimes through hypnosis.
Okay. Where is the unconscious mind?
The well, you act as if the mind has a place, and it doesn't. Okay, the mind. Remember, we said the mind is the aggregation of our thoughts. So, to the extent that thoughts have a place, I couldn't even tell you. I don't know. We can say, well, the thoughts are in my brain. They're coming through my brain. But, I could also say, well, your brain is the medium for your thoughts, but where are they? In the ether? What would we say? There's no good answer to that.
Okay. And so there's no place for the unconscious mind to reside either in your perception.
Oh, in perception, there's a place for the unconscious mind. But let's not confuse brick and mortar with ether. Ether is stuff that's out there. All right. And our mind perceives it. Good or bad, our mind perceives it. It's perception. All right. But not everything that's perceived comes through our senses. All right. That's why we have many examples of ESP, uh, of mind reading or supposed mind reading, or certainly of telepathy, but documented examples of these things, because again, not everything our mind knows comes through our senses.
Okay. And so where does telepathy fit into that?
So telepathy is very simple. Simply the being able to hear someone else's thoughts. So, and this has happened to me. I remember I was on an elevator. I used to work in a hospital. I was doing work in a hospital, and I was on an elevator, and a woman got on, and as soon as she got on, the name Patel jumped into my mind. I didn't know anyone by that name, but it just jumped into my mind. And the next moment, she turned to me and said, "Excuse me, can you tell me where Doctor Patel's office is?" Okay, so I didn't know. That wasn't my thought. It was hers, but I picked it up. Did I pick it up
Okay.
because I was trying to? No, it just occurred to me.
So how did that happen?
I wish I knew. I wish I could tell you how that happens. What I can tell you about telepathy is it isn't something you can turn on and off. It happens. It's just something that happens. I mean, I've
Okay.
had other instances of it
Have
happening
you thought
too.
about what happened to allow that to happen? Allow it to
No,
kick in?
no, I don't. No, no, because to me, if God is giving me that, then okay, there must be a reason. There must be a reason He's giving me that. And His, as Scripture says, His thoughts are not our thoughts, and His ways are not our ways, and we can't really understand them, and that's obviously true.
Mhm.
But we understand Him as best we can, and we do understand that He loves us. So, but as to as to how that happens, what is the mechanism through which that happens? I have no clue. I just know that it does happen.
Okay. You have religious beliefs.
Yes, sir.
And you have a concept of a God. Does that concept include the concept of it being infinite?
Of God being infinite? Yes,
Mm,
of course. Yes,
okay.
and He says that about Himself. So,
Okay. What, what and I'm not being, trite. What is your definition of infinite?
infinite means, in this case, in terms of God, it means always existed. He always existed, and He always will. That's the easiest way I can say it.
Okay. Is there anything outside of the infinite?
Yes, there's the finite. This earth is finite. You and I are finite. Our bodies are finite until and unless they're replaced, after in the
So
afterlife.
so the
But
finite
but
is not
yes,
within infinite?
I don't know if you could say it's within infinite, but it's not infinite. Infinite is
Finite
infinite.
is not
Infinite
infinite.
means
Yeah.
infinite by its definition means not finite. So
Okay. I think infinite, have you thought of possibly the numeric value of the infinite?
no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, and I know there are people who do, and I don't discount that. But and I've had people talk to me about numeric takes, certainly on biblical events. A lot of people try to do things with numbers in the Bible, but the problem is that they all fail. The most famous one was a man called Harold Camping. I don't know if you remember him, but in 2012 he was telling us that the world's ready to end, and people were taking this seriously. And I remember running into someone who told me she had sold all her possessions because the world was going to end the next day. And what did she need with them? So she sold them and gave the money away to anyone she wanted to give it to. And I thought, okay, but obviously He was wrong.
You didn't go get in line?
He was no, he was wrong. And the funny thing about it was he had done this twice before,
Mm.
but people didn't take him as seriously. But this time, I guess his PR was better
Well,
because
3rd time's a
people
charm. Didn't you
people were
didn't
people were
3rd
taking it
time's always a
seriously.
charm.
No, people were taking it seriously, and I said, "Well, yeah, hey, if Harold's right, good on him, because the Lord t he tells me through Scripture, nobody knows the date. It says that right there. So if
Mhm.
nobody knows the date, nobody knows it. So why are you pretending you know it? But that's neither here nor there. But that's an example. He used a lot of numbers and a lot of computations based on certain scriptures to decide that this day in 2012 was when the last day would finally happen.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the law of one? Are you
I have
familiar with the
heard
law
that
of one?
phrase. Yeah, I've heard that phrase.
Okay. The numerical value of infinity is 1. Any other number is finite. 2 is not infinite. It's 2 finite portions. But 1 is
I
infinite.
say, actually,
Everything is included
interesting.
in 1.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
So if the one infinite creator is the one infinite creator, one
True.
infinite creator is everything.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
100%. Hmm.
And your statements in the course of this conversation are about the finite,
Of
which are
course.
within the finite.
Right.
So in the pursuit of discovering healing and who we are as self-discovery,
Uh,
which we
that's
are the
part
one
of
infinite
that's part of it,
creator,
but that's not all. But that's not all of it. No, no,
it's
that's
not.
not all. It's no self-discovery is not all of it because
I'm
if you
sorry,
think
self-fulfilling.
yeah, self-discovery is the reason self-discovery is not all of it is because if we think this life is all about us, we are 100% wrong. Okay,
Well,
because we
that's
have
part
that
of our evolution, the
because we
evolution of
have
our
that infinite
awareness.
because we have that infinite creator, as you pointed out. It's really all about him.
Well, but you're by your statement, you're perceiving yourself as separate from the creator.
At the moment I am. That doesn't mean I'm not his creation. That doesn't mean I'm not linked to him, but he created me. All right.
Well,
I
he
am not
created
him.
you that you're
I am
separate
not
from the
him.
creator.
The only man who ever was one with the creator was Jesus because he
Okay.
himself was part of the Godhead. But but other than that, no. Yes, of course we're separate from the
You
creator.
don't recognize all of those definitions as being separate from the creator?
Oh, what definitions?
Well, your characterization of yourself, your
Hmm.
characterization of
Yeah,
Jesus.
yes. Well, no. I mean, my characterization of myself is definitely separate from the creator. The
Okay.
characterization of Jesus
So the
as
creator in
as
your perception, the
as
creator's not
is
infinite?
totally part of God. That's totally part of him.
Okay.
So
So
anything
you perceive yourself
that
as separate
involves
from the creator.
yes, I perceive
Okay.
myself as separate. I have a body that's separate from him, and I'm here. And he's and then he's given me, he's given all of us free choice. We have a choice to choose to do, say, live however we want.
And when
Okay,
and that
within boundaries.
would you agree that that's free will?
That's free will. That's what it is.
Okay. So and
Yes,
how would you define free will?
just what I said. The
The
ability to
choice have
the
the
ability
choice.
to choose how whatever we want. Now,
What is
sometimes we're
the
going to choose
predicate for
things.
that? What is the predicate for being able to make any choice?
The predicate is that we have the ability. We are given the freedom to choose whatever we want.
Right,
As
but that what is the predicate for
God
that?
could have made us just willing automatons that always did the right thing, but that's not what He wanted. He wanted us to have free will and to choose Him freely.
And
To choose Him freely.
isn't the predicate to that having a choice the perception of separation?
Yeah,
Okay. If you
yeah.
didn't
I
have
don't
the
agree that.
perception of
I
separation,
don't
there would
agree.
be no
Yeah,
choice.
yeah. I don't disagree that we are separate from God right now, but that doesn't mean we don't want to get closer to Him, and that doesn't mean we won't be with Him once we're done with this life. It
Okay,
doesn't
but
mean that.
that's still defining yourself as separate.
Yes, true. True. And because to define myself otherwise would be to claim to be God, which I could not do.
Well, I'm sorry, but you are. You're the one
Yeah,
infinite
no.
creator exploring yourself at this range of consciousness, which
Yeah,
is
no,
has a
I'm really
significant and
I'm
toxic
really not
in
him. I'm really not
okay.
him. I'm really not. If I were, I'd be doing a lot more good in the world than I am, but I'm trying.
Well, that's why we're experiencing a range of consciousness. I mean,
I hear
these are
you.
the
I hear you.
characteristics that we enjoy at
Hmm.
this range of consciousness.
Okay. Yeah, see, I
Okay, well, we
don't
got off the
disagree with
track
that.
again.
No, no, that's okay.
What words of wisdom
I honestly, I think what most of what you're saying makes sense. The only thing I would disagree with is that you and I are God. We are not. I'm sorry. We're not.
okay. I wish you luck with that investigation, that self-exploration.
Yes, sir.
And
And you
I
as well, my butt.
thank you, sir. And
Yes.
um, I ask you, what words of wisdom would you like to leave our listening audience at this point?
Hmm. Well, I guess what I like to leave people with is it's one of the things that gets talked about all the time. Don't assume. Don't assume that just because someone has a way of looking at things, a way of perceiving the world, a way of doing anything. Don't assume that it's right just because they seem persuasive or just because they it seems to be good for them. Don't assume. Don't assume that just yeah, again, that it's a great thing because people are unfortunately quite gullible, especially in the internet age. Don't assume that everything you see on the internet is real because
What?
in reality we know it's not. Okay.
You mean if you see it on the internet is not automatically true?
But people think that. I mean, my dad long ago used to say, "Well, what's in the newspaper, it must be true," you
It
know?
must be
And
true. Yeah.
yeah, yes, exactly, exactly. And that might have been more true in back in those days, but it certainly wasn't true for
Mhm.
everything, and it's definitely not true for everything that's on. But that's really, my advice to people is think for yourself. You know, does this
So
really make sense? Think with your logical mind. Does this really make sense? No, seriously, does this really make sense? Do I really think that's true? Okay. Because,
well, would
yeah, I want you to
could we
think with your logical mind.
encapsulate that in, question everything?
Uh, yeah. Well, not necessarily question everything, but look at everything, investigate everything. There's some certain things that will strike us, you know, you know, you know, I don't people say you should trust your intuition. Well, I only trust my intuition a certain amount because sometimes I have an intuition about somebody and it's wrong. Okay. And I'm a psychologist. I'm supposed to have good intuition about people, but sometimes my
Well,
intuition is wrong. So I don't say trust your intuition, but what I do say is, okay, think about it and look into it. And w- what is it about this person that really, is there a red flag in my mind? Well, what is that? Why is that red flag up? What is it about them that's striking me that way? So that's all a part of, don't assume. Don't assume. That the way we get misled way too often is just assuming that things are true. We talked about the internet and AI is the big thing now, right? And
right.
people say,
Yeah.
well, AI told me this. I've had people actually come into the office and tell me, AI told me this, that I should do this. You know, they will say that. And, and I say, the problem with AI is that it only knows what's on the internet. And
Yeah.
not everything on the internet is true, but it doesn't
Yeah.
differentiate. It'll just tell you what's on the internet.
And it speaks with authority too.
Exactly. It'll just tell you. So, it will, if you play a game with it, it will cheat in order to win. We found that out too. So it has no moral
They
compass.
built that humanity into it.
Yeah, there's no moral compass. It's just, yeah, it's just yeah, honestly, really the best advice, if I was just giving you one piece of advice, is don't assume.
Don't assume. It's very good.
Mm,
All right, I've enjoyed our conversation. I hope that you have
mhm.
too.
Yes, sir.
Uh, and I appreciate you sharing your magic wand with us.
Thank you. I wish I had one.
Well, I
But
thought all therapists had a magic wand.
no, 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 no. We'd like
No?
people to think that we do, but no, we really don't.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to click off right now. If you'll hold on while this adjusts, we can chat for a minute after we stop recording.
Yes, sir.
Thank you again. It's been a delight having you on.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.